Sometimes we build for the perfect user.
Yeah.
But
that's true.
most of the country or most of the audience is not the perfect user. So we think of it this way. If you build a crop protocol, right, you build it in English.
Crop protocol.
We use some models to sort of generate this crop protocol. Now, outside the generation, right, the default language will be English because even to get it easily, quickly translated to other languages,
it's a challenge.
The last month.
Ironically, we have these statistics, right? There's 60% arable land in Africa, blah blah blah. Right. A lot of our agriculture is exported. Yes. Right? There's a lot of people here that don't have enough.
So
right. So I
sort of see, cocoa is going higher, are selling, but in that same country, tomatoes are rotting like a family.
You could even ask the question, between Ghana and Ivory Coast, it's like 60-70% of cocoa production.
Yes.
But how often does the average Ivorian or Ghanaian interact with any cocoa product, like chocolate or like?
There's a service called, it's a sub-Saharan service. It's called ISD.
Okay.
And the work they've done is to sort of sample soils across sub-Saharan Africa. And when you go there, you could pick a location and they'll tell you that, this soil has nitrogen, this amount of phosphorus.
Okay.
Now, with that level of detail, if you are really going into farming, you know exactly how to prepare your land.
All right, welcome back to the Exponentials. My name is Sharif Ali. I'm here with my co-host,
Liam Tim.
And today we have Gilbert, who is joining us. Gilbert is a seasoned agri-tech professional. Welcome on board, Gilbert.
Thank you guys.
Yes. So today we'll be talking about how we're going to feed the future faster using agri-tech innovations. And we'll talk a bit about some of the global news relating to agri-tech. But before we do, I want to pose a question to our guest. What is agri-tech? When people say agri-tech, what does it actually mean?
Okay, so maybe there's a textbook definition, but I'll stick to what I sort of perceive it as, right? So you take a field that is traditional, right? And you try to use technology to impact every aspect of it, right? So you would say agri-tech is essentially having the traditional field of farming and food manufacturing and anything around engineering or, just the general maintenance practices around food.
Okay.
And applying tech to different elements of it, whether it's at the stage of production, whether it's at the stage of processing, at the stage of distributing. And so any entity or any company that finds themselves trying to apply technology across the food value chain would say it's, or I would say, let me not say that's what we would say, but I would say it's an agri-tech.
Okay. I guess we can talk about some of the global tech news that's going on in the space. I'll go first. I've been hearing a lot about, using gene editing and CRISPR to sort of modify crops. And there are some companies that are using that to, let's say, develop a tomato that grows better or a potato that has better yield. I mean, these are technologies that I'm not necessarily hearing about in practice here, but what do you make about technologies like that as a whole? First of all, is that the same as GMO?
I would say it is the same, right? But in terms of the application of those technologies, it's just in the context of what you're trying to achieve, right?
Okay.
I guess in this case, they are just looking at how to enhance or harden certain crops to suit their climate, not necessarily modify it for profit, right?
Okay.
So it's in the context in which you're applying the science, right? But I think generally, in terms of the application of it, I don't think is immoral or unethical or how the other people would claim.
Because I know in Africa there's a lot of pushback against GMO. But first of all, how do you feel about it? I have my own opinion. My opinion is just like any technology that it's not necessarily harmful just because it's genetically modified. But I want to know what you think, and I want to know Sherry's take on that too.
So I'd say, right, in the context of morality, all that stuff, if the science being applied is going to be harmful to the consumer, obviously you can't agree to that, right? But for me, there has to be advancement in some shape or form, right? And so I think not necessarily GMO products, but just the science of trying to enhance the food sources or the end product that we get to make it, closer to mass consumption, to be able to get the best value out of it. I think that's fine. It's only like harmful when it crosses a certain threshold where it's gonna impact or hurt somebody.
Have some health
issues.
So what's your take? I don't think I know. What do you feel about?
I mean, that's a good question, right? I think similar to what he's saying, as long as the science makes sense and it doesn't cross any boundaries, it's fine, right? But I think I look at it more from the perspective of how are we going to cut our costs and how are we going to improve the yield, right? Because ultimately, we want to be able to produce more for less.
Yes.
So if we are implementing some of these things and it's able to help us keep our costs low and increase our yield, why not? Right? Because, I mean, people are starving. Right? We need to get more food out.
For these things, some of them say they can engineer a crop so it uses 50% less water.
Right.
And for the same amount of yield, the same amount of everything else.
Yeah.
So I guess that sounds like a good thing to me. I mean, if
sounds like a great thing. Like, so you think of a setting where, like you pick a Sudan and there's a drought.
Yeah.
Right.
Perfect
Would
example.
we now say that we can't have certain modified seeds over there to support their climate? So it's I know it's a tricky conversation because when you give people like an inch, they'll take a mile. But once the science behind it is just about enhancements, not necessarily profitization, like I think it should be fine.
Okay. Sorry, maybe that news.
So I think what I would like to talk to you about primarily is robotics, right? Because I mean, AI is being used extensively in robotics in agriculture, right? So there are companies like John Deere that use AI to be able to identify weeds and then target those weeds, spray them with whatever it is,
with the laser,
get rid of them. Just very efficient robotics in agriculture. Within your domain, do you have much experience with some of these robotics?
Yes, I mean, obviously on the continent, we're on let me say explorative phase, right?
Right.
So if you take a farm that is set in the Netherlands, if they see the spacing of the crop is 6 centimeters apart, they'll do 6 centimeters apart. You bring it to our setting, varied
no
angles,
standards.
a lot of variables that you have to sort of estimate for. And so applying these things would take some more time. But yes, there are several organizations trying to make strides in that. Most of them are even leveraging on like open source solutions. So there's some sort of robots that are like open source that
I'll even put drones in that category.
Right.
I know that drones are something that is becoming very used in agriculture.
Yes, for
managing
spraying,
large scale farms.
So it's just a matter of time. We'll get there, but we're still explorative, and it will probably take a bit of work to enforce standardization so that you can then bring those in on a like very huge scale.
Okay, that's interesting. There's actually a company in Nigeria that closed a big round recently. They have these drones, but it's not for agriculture. It's for security.
So like I think on the farm, they want to be able to like
monitor
just property. I think
general security. General security.
This is technology where even some are using now. Cause I put drones in the same. I see drones as robots also.
Right.
So it's like I see that the same category. If you can have a drone that is monitoring your farm from the top, it can do maybe every 1 hour or every other day, does a flyby, and then sends a report on what is noticed. Like this section looks like it's a bit dry. This section,
right? Yeah. So, I mean, in my space, some of the work we're doing is actually actively using drones to gauge biodiversity, right? Because for example, if you want to export products to Europe, right, you have to be compliant. Like, white people. They don't want like food from
The standards are more strict.
Of course.
Very high standards, right? And so at the point where when somebody is about to start their farm using drones to be able to capture data to see, look, this area, there was no deforestation, it's very biodiverse. Also doing some work in using that to capture, fertility. So based on like depth and distance from like drone shots to the ground to gauge, okay, this soil texture is low. And people are using that data to sort of start their farming journey to sort of make some decision around maybe how to prepare their land and all those kind of things.
So the agri-tech industry in Ghana, right? I personally know like one or two main players. What is the competition like there? Do we have a lot of interest, a lot of investment? There are only one or two big names that I know.
Yeah.
So I mean, what is the industry like?
Two names, but yeah, but it has a lot of traction, right?
Okay.
Ultimately, there's almost three things that no human being can go without: food, water, shelter. And playing in any of these spaces is going to attract a lot of attention. Now, for agritechs in Ghana and Sub-Saharan Africa in general, the proposition is always we want to be in the space, dominate the space, and scale.
Right.
So every venture capital, every investment firm wants to have that big piece of the pie when it happens. Africa has like 60% arable land, youngest population.
I hear that statistic all the time.
A lot.
But it's the truth, right? And the youngest population as well on the globe. So imagine the mix of having the labor force and the perfect land to be the primary hub of food supply across the world. So yes, there's a lot of traction. There's a lot of investment. I think there's not a lot of collaboration as I would want being in the space. But then again, we're still for-profit organizations, right? So there's a level of competition over there. But yeah, like I said, there's people that are playing in the space of where it's just like processing, people that are just in the space of like farming, like production, people in the space of just distribution. So sometimes paths never cross, but I think generally I don't know, maybe you can check, but like one of the biggest like investment coupons have always been agri. Out of 50 in Ghana.
But ironically, we have these statistics, right? There's 60% arable land in Africa, blah, blah, blah. A lot of our agriculture is exported, right? There's a lot of people here that don't have enough food, right? So I guess what we are trying to do is just bring the conversation here. How are we using technology to make the whole process efficient enough so that we have excess or enough supply for our own people? Right, because a lot of people
even exports.
I mean, for sure,
surplus.
But for sure, we need some ourselves.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but would you say the biggest agri businesses here, the majority of them export?
Yes.
Yeah, I think
it depends on what it is, but largely yes.
The brands, like even for fresh fruits, there's a brand that they take the fruits today and it's on a flight tomorrow.
So it's like
we're not consuming
the best product, the best produce that the country produces.
I think the big thing also, like, there's a bit of issue with policy, right? If I spend so much and go through so many hurdles to produce the perfect banana, I'm going to want to sell it at a premium.
Also, because if we're being honest, the African consumer doesn't have as strict requirements. They are probably okay with the one that's just grown in like a local and managed farm. Like you can have a buyer for that in the local market. But those who are investing in all this heavy equipment, it's overkill if you're just trying to save the local.
Exactly.
That's true.
So that's something to think about.
That's very true. Yeah.
So that's why you'd find most of the, let's say, the good stuff being exported, right? But most of the players are looking to export because there's a premium on the price. Obviously, people outside our jurisdiction can pay more rather than the locals, and also, like you said,
quality.
Most local people would accept any standard once it's consumable. So
as long as you don't die.
Yeah.
Anyway, right, that's good. Now, before we move ahead, a word from one of our sponsors. Today's episode is brought to you by Govora.ai. We all know the AI revolution is here, but let's be honest, renting your intelligence from the cloud is a trap. You are paying monthly fees forever, and you're uploading your private data to servers you don't control. Govora is different. They build sovereign AI infrastructure for businesses. They don't just give you a login. They come to your office or factory or home and install a dedicated AI appliance that's hardware that runs powerful agents like finance, HR, security, completely offline on your own hardware. That means zero monthly fees to any of these providers like OpenAI. So stop renting, start owning. Go to Govora.ai.
Check it out right now.
That's Govora.ai and request a free sovereignty audit today. All right, Now back to our guests. So the challenge is a smallholder farmer can buy a, $500,000 tractor or or invest in, gene edited crops or that technology. Yeah. So I want to know all these fancy technologies that we hear about in Agritech, and which ones are the average African farmer actually using? We spoke of the drone one.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even think that is for the average, but look, the crux of it is that two structural problems that have to be solved. And so what the average smallholder farmer or the average farmer in Africa is experiencing is getting like more of the scientific innovations that are happening, right? So labs are going into building specific seed varieties that are good for our weather, that are, drought resistant, certain pest resistance, and those things are actually going a long way. Certain companies are trying to make their fertilizer compounds, very sort of targeted and accurate to specific crops. So we're getting a lot more of the science bits now than the actual like fancy autonomous bots right now. And I think that's good because we have to build like the sort of the runway, right? Before the plane can take off, right? So we need to put these structural elements in place, giving farmers good protocols, which are like good instructions that they can use to start a farm, giving them, good inputs that match the context in which they're going to farm as well. And so it's a good start. Those are the things you started with. You still find a farmer here and there using like a tractor, but that will not be your typical, small farmer.
But even with some of these pricier equipment like the drones, are there any companies that, because if a local farmer might need that service like as and when, are there any companies offering like a drone rental service who survey your farm and give you like a report?
Yeah. Yes, there are companies. For example, this one I can say because it's free anyways. So there's a service called, there's a sub-Saharan service, it's called ISD.
Okay.
And the work they've done is to sort of sample soils across sub-Saharan Africa. And when you go there, you could like pick a location and they'll tell you that, okay, this soil has nitrogen, this amount, phosphorus.
Okay.
Now, with that level of detail, if you are really going into farming, you know exactly how to prepare your land.
Yeah.
Right? The challenge now is that data sits on the internet. How do we get it to a smallholder farmer, right? And there are companies that are, and in my field of work, in my space, that's the work we're doing to get that information down in a way that they can easily access.
I think, bringing it back to AI, right? Like, there's AI in the education and science.
Yes.
And there's also AI in the operations, right? So it's an interesting topic because I feel like in some of this scientific research and stuff, there's a huge opportunity for us to use AI to just, make it a lot more accessible.
Yes.
Right? Do you know of any companies or any initiatives that are pushing for AI within this scientific context in agriculture?
There are a few, yes. And in fact, for where in my field and my space, something like that is happening where, so we think of it this way. If you build a crop protocol, right, you build it in English.
Crop protocol,
which is like a set of instructions that you would give to somebody to say, if you follow these instructions,
you get this yield.
This is the yield you would get.
I see.
Right.
Interesting.
So we use some models to sort of generate this crop protocol. Now, outside the generation, right, the default language would be English because even to get it easily, quickly translated to other languages,
it's a challenge.
The last mile is a challenge. So then we're looking at, okay, how do we build some of these large language models and how do we build text-to-speech innovations that will leverage machine learning to sort of easily translate
local languages. That could provide a lot of value.
So really, a lot of companies want to do the fancy stuff, but they are looking at the rails first. Like, how do we get the standardization to the last mile, and then all the fancy things will come on top of it.
There's actually this Ghanaian company. They are focusing on translating to the local dialects. Right. I think they were on the news recently with the Minister of Education.
Something with education.
Exactly. You know, I think these are sort of the discussions we need to have.
Yes.
And what I like
because
about
for us, we are very
homegrown ideas.
Absolutely. And for us, we represent a minority of the general public. Right. How many Ghanaians speak fluent English?
Speak English.
You understand, you know, so
know how to
we have to prioritize this kind of local
at least to have the most impact. If not, it will just be a fancy experiment that
precisely.
you can say, I developed this thing, but no one
is using it.
I think that's the big gap that you have to cross. Like, we develop or sometimes we build for the perfect user. But
that's true.
Most of the country or most of the audience is not the perfect user. So context, right? It's about just applying more context to how we innovate. But with regards to like the innovations that are coming in are more on the science side. But I think explorative work too has to be done, right? You could, for example, a tractor costs like 500K, right? Or that amount. But if you build a small autonomous bot that was just even not like fancy, but mechanical to move, right, on a smaller scale, it would probably cost less than that amount, and it could do some not the same work, but it could do some parts of the job, right? So these are the like I see people trying to innovate and like trying to build a whole tractor but make it auto. If you scale it down, you could
stepping away from the science part of it. You know, one of the main issues with the agricultural value chain in Africa is the supply chain and logistics.
Yes,
I've heard of a statistic, but maybe you can speak more on it, that a lot of the produce, if not most, ends up rotting by the time
at the farm gate.
At the farm. So can you explain why that is the case, and if there are any technological solutions to or things that can make our logistics and produce more efficient to eliminate that? Like, first of all, why is that the case? Like, give us the bigger picture.
It's a mix of two things. There's a people problem and an infrastructure problem. People problem because sometimes people get greedy, right? So they feel like they spent a lot on their farm. It's harvest season. They've harvested the produce. They want to sell it at a certain price point to make a certain margin. So they will hold on to what they feel like is off season, and then try to sell. At that point, either I've bought it from Burkina Faso or I imported it from somewhere. Now, infrastructure problem because you can build all the apps in the world. Internet will not replace the road. Right. If you have to move something from here to here, you need a passageway. Something has to be there.
Some of the crops might even get damaged from potholes.
Exactly. So those two problems really impact the supply chain. Like, and also storage practices, right? Like, for me, I've never understood where we know that this is a hub for like perishable products. There are no like cold chain spots. Right. If you expect somebody to privately invest in that, there has to be the purchasing power of the farmer.
To support it. Going back to what we were speaking about it.
But the farmer clearly doesn't have the purchasing power. So there has to be some, for this I'll say some state involvement, right, in playing in that space and like sort of coordinating that. But between storage and obviously the lack of certain infrastructure to move product and the people problem of like wanting to sell at the highest margin possible.
Those two things coming together
would have a lot. And it's true, a lot of stuff get rotten at the farm gate. Farm gate is like, like where the person a lot also gets written when it gets to the market.
The market, yeah.
Because the market women also have an idea of how much they want to sell it to you as a consumer.
Speaking of the states, right, is government involved outside of regulation of pricing and stuff like that? Are they involved heavily in some of the operations within agriculture?
I mean, yes, generally.
Beyond subsidies.
They have like extension agents.
Extension agents.
Yeah, like to help train farmers in specific areas.
Okay.
So government does a lot of that. But I would be honest to say, I think so much attention goes to the cash crops, right? Because, so like the cocoa, the cashews, because those are like
literally
Right,
cash crops.
right,
It's in
right,
the name.
right.
so much attention goes to that we neglect the everyday crops that
Yeah.
people would be consuming on a day-to-day.
Yeah.
So you sort of see, okay, cocoa is going high, are selling,
Yeah.
but in that same country, tomatoes are rotting like
Yeah.
fungi.
You could even ask the question, between Ghana and Ivory Coast, it's like what, 60-70% of cocoa production.
Yes.
But how often does the average Ivorian or Ghanaian interact with any cocoa product, like chocolate or like
Rarely.
cocoa powder? Yeah, so
Exactly.
it's like there's a disconnect where it's like literally it's just a figment of our GDP, but it's not really something people consume.
Yes, obviously you can't consume it after the person has made Milo and it's 76.
True.
More or less, we're stuck in a space where we have to always import the end product of those cash crops, and
Yeah.
there's no way to sort of semi-process it for even people to
That should be
enjoy
the
in the
goal,
country.
where 100% processing is done. It's a bit of a stretch, but like on the Exponentials podcast, we like to give bold ideas. Why don't we get to a point where majority of the crops in Africa are being processed here
That would be
instead of
fun.
exporting it there for them, wherever it goes to process it and then send it back to us.
The only one thing I'd say, a few times I get impressed is the way Gary went away and came back in fashion and like those suit bags, and like that's
Yeah,
a
branding.
good
That
sign
actually
of
is you raise a
of,
good point. Sometimes it's a branding issue, because if you brand it well, maybe the locals might find it attractive. Anyway, moving on. So that is essentially our African Global Connection and Cultural Commentary section. We'll briefly do our signature investing lens, where we talk about some of the companies that are in these spaces, so that some of you listeners who want to invest in them can do. But reminder, this is not financial advice. We are just sharing some companies that we know are in the space. One that comes top of mind is a company like John Deere. I mean, if agriculture is going to keep getting bigger and bigger, companies that make the tractor equipment, especially when now they are trying to automate them and have them automatically harvest your farm for you, a company like that is well positioned. There are not many others that come to mind. This is not financial advice, but who would you say are some of the big players in agribusiness globally that still have impact, not just in Africa, but like globally? And maybe even some players in Africa.
I'm very interested in like the open source companies that are making certain innovations like available. So there's like one exciting company called the FarmBots, right? And
Sorry?
FarmBots.
FarmBots.
Yes.
Okay.
And that product, essentially, all it does is to help with like automating, spraying, sort of all those kind of things.
Pesticides and
Yes.
We love open source companies.
yeah.
And yeah, that's like something that somebody can pick on, contextualize,
Yeah.
and then sort of redeploy in a cheaper way
Yeah.
or use different material. So that's one company I think something people can look at. If somebody wants to explore how to make it cheaper for all of us to buy.
We have tech demo. So that's
It's a new segment.
It's a new segment we are trying to
One
introduce.
feedback we got back in previous episodes was people hear about all these technologies, but it still seems very abstract to them.
Precisely.
So Sharif is going to take a minute and demo how some of these AI tools can actually help your business, whether it's in agribusiness or just
anything in general, yeah.
So over to you.
So, I mean, a bit of context, right? So we have a bus ticketing service called Swift.
Right.
And we have an issue where buses I mean, the buses get full, but in order for our merchants to add on more buses, we need to give them a certain occupancy. Right. If the occupancy is below that, it doesn't make business sense for them to put the new buses on. So what I'm coming to do now is I've opened up my terminal. I'm using a tool called Codex, which is basically AI in the terminal.
Right.
So I'm just going to give it a prompt. It has access to my code base. So it's going to look through my application and then give me the functionality I'm looking for. So what we are looking for basically is we want the riders to be able to register interest. So if they are trying to book a trip and it is fully booked, we want them to let us know that, hey, I'm interested in this trip. Right. And then what we'll do is we'll give the merchant that visibility so they know how many people are interested. If it crosses the threshold, then they can add on a new bus. Right. So I have the prompt in here. It's basically summarizing what I've just told you. Sure. I'm going to hit enter.
Right.
As the model is working, I'm just going to read out the chain of thoughts, right? Because it's important that we highlight the work that is being done by these models, right? So as I was explaining, I want to highlight the chain of thought, right? Which is we get visibility on how the model is thinking, right? So I've expressed myself to the model, and the first thing it says is I'm identifying the timetable endpoint, right? So obviously, based on what I've expressed, it has a bit of context as to which endpoint it needs to work on, right? So it's just going through my files, looking at the various modules, functions, and it's trying to identify enough context to make a decision, right? So it's actually going quite quick. So I'm going to try and highlight a few things.
While he's doing that, I want to point out that one of the reasons we're highlighting this is these technologies are very transferable to other domains. So Sharif is a developer and he's building Swift with it, but this same technology can be applied to any other problem, whether you are managing a farm or you're in finance. He's highlighting the ability for the model to reason through your
steps
in several steps and arrive at a conclusion.
Yeah, and I think, just watching the model do its work is pretty exciting because it abstracts a lot of stuff away, right? It's doing a lot of work. It's looking for text, is looking for functions, is understanding the flow of these functions, is looking at the conditions, making sure that it's valid. And of course, there's a lot of intelligence here, right? It has a lot more context than a junior, mid, and even some senior engineers, So the kind of code is going to produce most of the time is good enough. Of course, you cannot just push this code to production, right? You need some senior solutions architect perhaps to review the code and make sure that it's not going to cause any bugs, right? But it's pretty interesting. So right now we've gotten to the planning stage, right? So it's planning the trip interest schema and indexing, right? So it's clearly identified what the objective is, which is trip, just to indicate your interest in the trip, So it's done that now. It's defining guarded endpoints against idempotency. So basically what that means is if I'm hitting the endpoint multiple times, I'm only going to receive one request. So, it's just a pretty exciting time we're in because work that would have taken, let's say, a week or two,
probably more.
More. Yeah, I've been able to do it. Literally, it's only been 2 minutes, right? Yeah. It's still running. So, we can have other discussions in the meantime, but I just find this very interesting because it's this kind of work would have taken a lot of time.
So this is what we mean when we say AI is going to boost productivity. So we encourage all of you to try out the tools and really get a feel of it. Don't let it just be abstract in your mind. Whatever problem you think you have in your specific domain, throw the problem at the AI agents and see what you can do.
This session is powered by Sci Technology. So we are a local company specializing in AI tools. We build automations. We have some SME services, so websites, web apps, all of that stuff. But we focus primarily on enterprise automations. And if you need any support anytime whatsoever, just reach out to us. Our website is www.scitechnology.co, and you can just see the kind of work we do, and we are more than happy to support with the AI needs that you have. So we've gotten to a stage where it's finally understood everything we are trying to do, and it's actually putting in the code now. So it's put up the controllers, which are the endpoints that your front end or client applications are going to hit. It's worked on the decorators, so it's protecting these endpoints with permissible roles and just making sure that the people who have access are the people who are able to perform this function, right? And it's just making a few changes to ensure that this new feature is backward compatible, so that we are not breaking any existing functionality. You know, so it makes working in programming very interesting, right? Because it takes away a lot of wahala. You know,
Definitely.
No, this is an interesting tool. I don't think I've ever used this particular AI.
Okay.
I mean, like Claude, those other ones. Things you've doubled in, but this is good. I think the way it breaks down stuff on the back end, that's like a very helpful.
Yeah, so it's not like a black box.
You see what's going on.
Because with other tools, it will just give you like the script, and you have to run it and then do a lot of checks to figure out what will break what.
Precisely.
But with this, sort of makes it a bit modular. So that's something.
Precisely. And for me, I personally prefer working in the terminal, right? Because there's a lot of power in the terminal. It has access to the files.
Exactly.
An application, a service is just a list of files, right?
Yep.
So it's able to directly get the files, modify them. You know, all these models, ChatGPT and all these apps, it's their client apps. It's in the cloud. It's on someone else's server. Right. But with a model like, so I use Codex, but you can use Claude CLI. Any of these tools, they all have CLI tools that you can use in the terminal.
That's right.
It's a lot more powerful. It's very engaging to use. I find a lot of joy when I use these things because, again, I'm a software engineer, as William said, but I'm not. I didn't go to school to learn software engineering. Right.
And then I gave up.
Oh, really?
So maybe with this, you can get back in.
Why not?
In a better time.
Why not? So it's done. It's done. And I'm just going to quickly read out what it's saying. So it starts off by saying this is a good idea, right? So it's even validating the concept before it even comes to the technology, right? And that's another benefit of the tool because it's going to help you conceptualize, strategize, and plan even before it gets to actually doing it. So it says, good idea. This is a lightweight wait list that converts sold out into demand signal, which is what we want. We want to give our merchants the demand signal so that they can bring on more supply. You know, so I mean, you can see the screen, so you can. I'm not going to dive deep into it, but basically, the whole point of this demo is to showcase how powerful these tools are, because this is a live service. We have paying customers on it. Right now, we are able to deploy this feature
quickly,
very quickly.
He's just saved a week or two of time.
Precisely.
In 15 minutes.
Precisely.
A lot of people's homework just got done.
Literally.
But this is like, I've never run it in my command line before. Like a GPT. So this is something I would definitely.
Yeah, you should check it out. Definitely.
So now, as we wrap up, we have some just freestyle a bit. I want to know, if you could snap your fingers and fix one part of the agricultural food chain in Africa, where do you think would have the most impact? Like if you had only one choice.
Interesting. Production. So at the point of farming, I think if the volume is big, no matter how much you lose, there'll be enough, right?
Yeah.
So let's start from the source point. And even if we have 1 million metric tons of food, and due to certain practices, we lose even 40% of that, 60% is still enough to feed.
So that implies you think there's underproduction now?
Yeah.
Oh, really? Interesting. Okay.
Because
I mean, we spoke about surplus and
exporting and all these
things.
The people
the people exporting are doing it just to export.
Right. That's a separate discussion.
They are not even thinking of you to sell
Right.
to you.
Right.
The people that want to sell to you, they don't have the manpower to do enough to feed you and everybody else.
So there's some distortion in the numbers, because if you look at, let's say, the agricultural produce, not even exports of Africa, it contains everything that's produced there, and it's
Exactly.
So it could be a bit misleading. The tonnage figures.
The people that are producing to export, it's very targeted, right? Because they spend a lot in being compliant. They sort of have to spend more to get certain standardizations, set up. So obviously, it's just targeted at that audience. But the people that are producing for your consumption don't have the manpower to produce to the scale, right, that we need. So, yeah, numbers will be reported like, Ghana net exports this amount. But was it really meant for you?
That's very good to know.
Yeah. Okay. But it's quite interesting because, at some point I was into farming myself. Right. So I had a plantain farm somewhere in Brikusu. And the agriculture requires a significant investment.
Yes.
Right. And I feel like that's part of the reason why it's very hard for local farmers to succeed.
Yeah.
Right. Because you need to invest in so many things: irrigation, storage, logistics, labor, and it's a lot. Yeah. And there's not a lot of support for these kinds of small scale farmers. So for us, we had to shut it down because we didn't invest in any irrigation. Right, rain. When we were using the rain, so the harvest was very inconsistent.
So my point, like
production.
Because
it's a good answer.
Yeah.
I didn't think about
the whole continent
as the bottleneck.
It's like rain fed.
Yeah,
half of any farm, the average farm in Ghana relies on the rain. So if it doesn't rain by May, we have a problem. Right? So that's why I feel production. I mean, generally, the number is going to say, we export a lot, and why don't we have enough to eat? The reason you don't have enough to eat is because the people doing for export were doing it exactly for that.
Right.
Okay, just to follow up on that, as we wrap up, if production is the issue, but we know that demand is there, if someone wanted to make the necessary investment to boost production, but cater to the local market, how would they compete? Because they are competing with the produce that is just rain, irrigated. But if I wanted to make that investment, surely my product would be pricier than the local.
You just have to be willing to reduce your margin. That's the honest thing.
Okay.
You just have to be willing to reduce
it. Not lose, because you're not making a loss.
Right.
But so, for example, you want to do a greenhouse, all that stuff, so that you can have all year round bell peppers.
Yeah.
I don't know the price of bell peppers now, but you also probably be more expensive than when I did it in the rain and summer's rotten and whatever. Right. But then you have to be willing to sort of project a longer break-even period for that initial cost, right? And that makes you
I guess investments like that need to have some altruistic elements.
Some patience capital.
Basically, I like that. Okay then. All right.
Anyway, thank you guys
very much for your time.
joining.
This was very informative. We hope you learned a lot.
Where can we find you actually?
So you can find me on LinkedIn. My name, find me. If you're looking for me for more of my services, I'm tied to a company, so you could find me. You could reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'll talk to you about the company.
All right.
Sure. All right, guys.
So, thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of the Exponential Podcast, and we'll catch you in the next episode.